Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, unfortunately for you, I've taught undergraduate theater history, so it's great to see all your faces here today. My name is Elle Thoni. I'm the grassroots communication strategist with the People Over Petro Coalition, and I also have a practice as a playwright and public artist. So I could not be more thrilled to be here today to have a conversation with all of you about creative protest. We have a really exciting panel that's prepared some really exciting stuff for you. So I'm excited to get us started. Just a couple of things before we do that. So you may have noticed that there are these little circles that have appeared on your table. So those serve a different purpose than the note cards. I wonder, Carole, would you mind sharing with people what those circles are for?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Carole. The circles are they're for circles of gratitude, and the idea is that you can write a message of gratitude to a colleague, maybe somebody that's here today, to maybe somebody that helped get your lunch together, maybe back at your hotel, someone that helped clean your room, and you give it to them. So take as many as you'd like, and we'll sort of create circles of gratitude amongst ourselves and sort of out into the world.
Great, fantastic. So the circles are there for you to fill out as you wish for the rest of the day. And then I also just wanted to say that we're gonna maybe switch up the Q&A format a little bit afterwards. So instead of using the note cards, we are going to try using the mic. I know. So I'm giving you some fair warning. So, as you're thinking about your questions, I encourage you to jot down because like you've seen, we kind of go from one speaker to the next. We'd love to have you ask a question directly. So when we go to the Q&A section, I'll ask that you raise your hand if you have a question, and then you can ask it directly to the panelists. Sound good? Awesome. Okay, well, before I introduce our first dynamic speaker, I just wanted to give a thank you to all of you for being here. There's a lot going on in the world, in our industry, in our communities, and our lives. I'm from Minneapolis, so I get it. And it just takes a lot to show up and to be present, to be physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually present. So I appreciate all of you, and I also want to give a thank you to PSRPA for uplifting this conversation. I'm not one of the panelists today, but I worked for a very long time as a public artist in environmental advocacy before switching over to working it as a day job. And I just want to say that I think that, I've gotten a lot of responses saying that creativity is novel in our movement, and certainly it brings in a different energy, right? But creativity is a form, like a lot of people think about it as a painting or as a sculpture or as a dance, and it's absolutely those things. But creativity, in its essence, is also process. And, very relevant for our movement, creativity is strategy. And we're gonna see that appear in different ways in these speakers' presentations, and I just hope that it helps expand our minds a little bit about what our movement can do. All right. So for our first speaker, we are going to go to Michael Bagdis-Canning. Michael, is it okay if I read your bio?
No, don't read it, just...
Don't read your amazing bio?
No.
You're just gonna let people wonder? Okay, great. Well then, I will just invite Michael up to the mic and we can give Michael a round of applause.
So I'm the non-creative person in this group. Everyone else is pretty amazing. I'm not that person. Pennsylvania Action on Climate was born at the intersection of bad climate policy and political corruption. In Pennsylvania, there are 5 ways that you can bribe a legislator. And we just thought that was a wrong way to go. And that's why we're where we're at. Now, this is a creative protest. And what does creative protest look like? Oh man, this video is not going to work for me. What is the story?
There are some things in our society and some things in our world for which I'm proud to be maladjusted. And I call upon all men of goodwill to be maladjusted to these things until the good society is realized. I must honestly say to you that I never intend to adjust myself through racial segregation and discrimination. I never intend to adjust. But there are some...
Oh, come on. All right. I'm a fossil, so you'll have to bear with me. Dr. King also, we were maladjusted to policy murder. That's why we protest. We are maladjusted to policy murder. And Dr. King talked about what kind of protest we need to have. And what he said was, we need to be creatively maladjusted. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some maladjustment. When I'm talking about maladjustment, I'm talking about developing campaigns, not one-off protests. PAC, Pennsylvania Action on Climate, the group that I'm involved with, decided that we were not going to have a bunch of one-off protests. We were going to develop a campaign. And my friend George Lakey, the guy with the banner there, said a campaign is a series of escalating actions. And certainly the civil rights movement did just that. They moved from protests to court cases. They moved from pleas to petitions. They moved from rallies to rides on buses. They moved from boycotts to walking into dogs and fire hoses, from encampments to jail. And all of that then led to the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and an end to Jim Crow in the South. Now, I'm here to talk about standing up by sitting down. A disclaimer. I've got 15 minutes. I'm not going to tell you everything you need to know. There are lots of groups out here that do training on how to escalate. But let me also say, you heard a lot of amazing stories today. You don't go to escalation right off the bat. PAC, we visited our legislators. We lobbied. We wrote letters to the editor. We petitioned. We attended town hall meetings. We vote. We knock on doors. We educate. We agitate. We do all the things that we're allowed to do. But when change doesn't happen, then the next thing we have to do is we need to escalate. So I'm going to walk you through an ongoing campaign. The narrative that the fossil fuel industry has around fossil fuels is that they create great jobs, that they are good for the environment, that they bring all kinds of economic prosperity to Pennsylvania and other places. Well, we beg to differ. We found that there are 203 registered lobbyists in Harrisburg. And guess what? There are 203 state representatives in our capital. You do the math. You ask yourself, why do we have that narrative? In Pennsylvania, it's perfectly legal to bribe our legislators. The Cambridge Dictionary for Bribery, Pennsylvania law on lobbying, they look almost the same. In my last court case, I said to the judge, you're in the wrong business. Because you see, judges and cops can't even accept a cup of coffee from people who have business before them. But our legislators, they can get fed every single day, all day long. They can go to the Super Bowl. They can go to Europe on a wine tasting trip. And they do. PAC's birth happened in two places at once. We went to Senator Gene Yaw's office. You've heard his name, right? Senator Gene Yaw is the Senate chairman of the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee. He's also an attorney with the McCormick Law Group in Williamsport that on its webpage brags that it works with the oil and gas industry, the very industry that he writes laws about. He's working for when he's not doing that. So we went to Gene Yaw's office and we demanded that he give up his full-time job as a legislator, or he give up his side job as a shill for the oil and gas industry. Well, he slipped out the back door and 8 of us were arrested. Just a little bit after that, we crashed another little meeting. And PK was there. We went to the gallery of this Pennsylvania House, and we dropped a banner, thanks PK, that said, "You take bribes, the planet dies." And then we threw $203 down to the representatives.
Without objection, the approval of the Journal of May 1st, 2019 will be postponed until...
Beautiful.
Some of us were arrested there too. We went to court though, and all the charges were thrown out. Now, our next little extravaganza. For the last 127 years, the billionaires invite Pennsylvania legislators to come to the Waldorf Astoria in New York so they can stuff money in their pockets. That saves them having to make a trip all the way to Harrisburg. Well, they get wined and dined and bribed, and we decided to crash that little party.
A century-long orgy of bribery and corruption. The people of Pennsylvania are tired of being screwed over by our legislators.
Are you on TikTok? I am on TikTok. Okay.
You're just a robber baron with a robber's life. You take all the bribes, and hell, we pay the price. All we want is equity, a fair democracy. But we're always under the heel of the aristocracy. That's why we keep on. We keep on watching you. Pennsylvania society. Oh, that's why we keep on. We keep on watching you. And we know obviously.
I'm going to stop that just because if you want to see it, it's around, it's out there. The funny thing was some of those people thought that we were actually paid entertainers. So I guess we didn't do a very good job of letting them know that we were keeping our eyes on them. A month after that, we went to a $1,000 a plate fundraiser for Senator Scott Martin. I couldn't afford to go, so we decided we'd block the way and make them have to walk through us. Well, this is Senator Mike Regan. Mike Regan wanted to get in so badly, he felt like he had to push over some little old guy.
Go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The looters have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The looters have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The looters have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The looters have got to go!
We are here as a talk for a toxic cleanup. No, I'm not.
Get your hands up now!
Hey!
Get your hands up!
Hey! Oh my God.
He needed a bribe in the worst kind of way. Well, guess what? A month later, Senator Regan had his own fundraiser. We showed up for that too. Now, I'm going to get bipartisan. Governor Shapiro said that there is no wrong way for the people of Pennsylvania to communicate with him. He also said that his doors are always open. I don't know how many of you have gone to Governor Shapiro's doors with environmental concerns, but I've been many, many times with many, many organizations, and damn if they aren't always closed. Well, shortly after he made that statement, we organized something called Tour de Pack. It was a bicycle ride from across Pennsylvania, from west to east, back to the center. And along the way, we were collecting stories from people who lived in frontline communities. And we found the same thing over and over again. Those people were having problems with their elected officials, from the local all the way up to the national level. It's funny. The politicians were doing the bidding of the people who were bribing them and not the people that were being poisoned in their communities. Well, we collected these stories and we headed to Harrisburg. There was a People's Climate Conference there, and we were going to present our stories to the governor because he was invited to this thing. Well, guess what? He didn't show up. So PAC went to the governor's office again, and guess what we found? A closed door. Well, we're not easily deterred, so we went ahead and we started doing some research to find out where the money was coming from What was keeping Governor Shapiro from listening to the people? And we found that he had millions and millions of dollars in his gubernatorial campaign that was laundered through the Democratic Governors Association, money that came from the fossil fuel industry. So we wrote a little research paper. It's on our webpage. You can check it out. And we decided we'd go to visit the governor at his office. Well, on our way over, a reporter called us and said, hey, the governor heard you were coming, but he closed down the entire House side of the Capitol, and no one can get in, not even the press. So guess what? That's against the Constitution of Pennsylvania. When the House is in session, we have to have unfettered access to our representatives. So he opened up that side of the Capitol. We went to his office. We were met with the locked door, but this time we were met with a bunch of police officers, and 3 of us were hauled away because we wanted to slip our report under the door. Well, Dr. King told us that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Bribery is still legal in Pennsylvania, but it's becoming more and more difficult for the legislators to avoid talking about it. It's a bipartisan issue. People of both parties and every party hate that our politicians are bought. So, I talked earlier about ways that you can get more training. There are 3 organizations I'd like to tell you about that do a really fantastic job of escalating. The first one is a group called March on Harrisburg. March on Harrisburg is, for the last 9 years, has been taking on corrupt politicians. They are doing all kinds of amazing direct action things. At the end of April, they're going to march from Reading to Harrisburg, because that's what they do, they march. But then on the 4th of May, they are going to carry out a little escalation in the Capitol. If you want to get into this thing, they do a fantastic job of training you, and you can enter on any level. You can enter as a moral witness all the way up to someone who is arrested. Another group that does an amazing job, but on the federal level, is Beyond Extreme Energy. Beyond Extreme Energy has been targeting the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for 13 years. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission was, by and large, a rubber stamp for the fossil fuel industry. They are now a little bit better, and that's because Beyond Extreme Energy has been holding them accountable. The last group is PAC. We do trainings. We help people to get up to speed on nonviolent direct action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm going to have that earworm in my mind for the rest of the day. In a moment, I'm just going to invite up our next speaker. First, Michael, can I ask you a quick follow-up question?
Yes.
So you talk about these actions as intentional escalation, yeah?
Absolutely.
I'm just curious how your group plans for the risks of those escalations. Like, how is that a part of planning the action?
I'm not sure I understand the question, except for, I will say that, we go into these things knowing that you might be arrested.
Right, that's exactly what I mean. Like
Right.
It sounds like you've been arrested a stunning amount of times. So I'm just wondering for how your group plans for that in a big action like this.
Well, like I said, we recognize that it's a possibility. We've done, especially in the Capitol, we've done a lot of stuff in the Capitol. So we recognize how that works. But I've also got a history of getting arrested other places. And the idea is you work with people who have legal training that can advise you on what the possible consequences are and go from there. Is that helping you at all? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to pull on that thread a little bit because I think it's awesome that you kind of bring up the strategy of like intentional escalation, and I was just curious about kind of what went into that planning. So thank you for speaking to that. So our next speaker, Linnea, do you want your bio?
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't remember what I said.
Fantastic. Well, I'll let her speak for herself. It's Linnea Bond, everybody. Please warm the stage for Linnea.
Thank you. I did not remember what I wrote in that. All right. I appreciate everyone's attention. We are getting to the end of the day. We are so close. This is the exciting part. It has been a wonderful day to spend with everybody. Okay, so this is what I've been doing for the last 4 years. I'm touring a solo show that I wrote. I am a clown. My show is about the pain of existence. I play a sales representative trying to sell the audience on existing because you are between death and either rebirth or nirvana. And I'm trying to sell you on being reborn, but I keep accidentally talking about all the bad parts of being alive. And it's actually about physical and emotional pain surgeries that I had in a big breakup, but it ends talking about how we exist within the climate crisis and an expression of grief, but also reaching for hope. And wherever I've toured this show, I've partnered with local organizations to try to link audiences up to campaigns. Do I know if that's been successful? I do not. Because audiences are having their emotional journey and then they leave. But I always try to link people up to that. I'm going to talk about other actions more specifically, but this is what I've been working on in my personal life. As a theater artist, we sometimes talk about how to act is driven by action. Someone gave me the statement, I want to blank a blank, so I want to, some kind of actival verb, another character, so this person will blank, feel or do something, and I'm willing to blank and blank and blank, that's how you list your tactics, to see that happen now. And so you're always pushing yourself to get more specific. So if you're playing, I don't know, Hamlet, you might say, I want to kill my father. I want to like get my nerves together in order to kill my father, to get revenge, and I'm willing to get a knife and stab him in the heart, whatever. So maybe I try to think about this when I come to like tactics and organizing as sort of a creative approach. So you might say something like, I want to shame Vanguard, so they'll divest from fossil fuels, and I'm willing to lay down on their driveway with the media there until they arrest me to see that happen. I've seen people do that. I was not arrested at that action. Or, I want to excite Philadelphians who have retirement in Vanguard, so they call their asset manager, and I'm willing to run a single audience member show with a follow-up after to see that happen, which I did. It should be pleasurable and linked up with others. This comes from the acting world, but I thought, what if we apply this to activism? And it's useful to have a mechanism to measure impact within a scene that's looking at your scene partner and seeing, did it work? And as an organizer, you might find other ways to measure impact. I think about sort of shifting public opinion, shaming a target, and energizing, educating a base as some of the main things that I do when I plan an action. So moving a target might mean impacting their leaders, it might mean impacting their employees, it might mean utilizing a weak point to move them, like their public image, their self-image, or a shared value that you say they're violating. Activating the public to move a target, maybe you're thinking about what public, where do they already stand? And energizing or educating a base, I think, especially in this moment where it's like pain after pain after pain that we're existing within, I don't think that we can underestimate the importance of that, to keep ourselves going amidst the action that we're doing. My predecessor listed George Lakey as an influence. This graph comes from George Lakey's work. And he talks about moving people from basically one pie to the next pie and so forth. So we have active opposition, passive opposition, neutral, passive allies, and active allies. So when you are targeting, trying to activate a public, for example, maybe you want to move your passive allies into action. Maybe you want to move people who are neutral into being passive allies. We don't often go for active opposition because there's not really much point. But you might be pushing your people who are neutral to push someone like the target on something. And I also think about these empowering assumptions. I'm on my own journey within organizing. I'm not saying that I have it all figured out, so people may agree, disagree, or say you're not saying enough. But social change doesn't happen in isolation, even if the community is tiny. We're acting in collaboration with others across movements and campaigns, and it's stronger when we're intentional about that. like thinking what's been done, who's working on this, how we're part of a larger movement, and how we're supporting other leaders and impacted communities within this movement. I think that we need to be more radical, risky, and creative, not overcommit, working smarter, not harder. And I think institutions are slow to change and have internal, intentional slowing mechanisms, but they're also run by people who respond strongly to feelings, which is what art is about. Gives us some fire. Okay, so I did something with the Yes Men. I just really like their work, so I always want to talk about it. Is anyone not familiar with the Yes Men here? So maybe, yeah, lack of familiarity. Okay, so there's 3 documentaries about them that you should definitely go watch. They're amazing. But the Yes Men are a culture jamming activist duo and network of supporters, famous for making fake websites and posing as spokespeople for corporations. They call it a collaborative effort with journalists to help the media tell stories which they believe are important. My favorite action, and the one I think I heard about them with, was when they created a fake website that when Dow Chemical bought Union Carbide, who caused the Bhopal disaster. They made a fake website saying that Dow Chemical was going to liquefy Union Carbide and give all the money to the victims of Bhopal. And the BBC found that website and said, "Whoa, that's amazing. Can we have you on?" And they said, "Of course." So they posed as a spokesperson, and here's one of the main duo of the Yes Men, telling BBC, you know, it's fine, we're finally doing the right thing. And everyone was amazed, and Dow's stock plummeted. And an hour later, Dow called the BBC, and they said, "That wasn't us." And the BBC had the Yes Men back on. This is Andy Bickelbaum as his stage name. And they accused him of being like, "How dare you do this? Don't you feel," obviously the BBC was very embarrassed, and they were basically saying, like, "Don't you feel like the people in Bhopal are upset?" And so the Yes Men went to Bhopal, and they asked people, and people were like, "You created an awareness about our experience that, you know, of course we're upset that Dow Chemical's not doing this, but we feel forgotten, and now we're in the news again." Yeah, great action. So, I did an action with them, with the Earthquaker Action Team as part of the Vanguard campaign, trying to push Vanguard to use their asset management. They're like the second largest asset manager. They go back and forth with BlackRock, and trying to use their voting power to make decisions on climate and be better on climate and ultimately divest from fossil fuels. And so we set up that, well, I'll just play the video. Does it work? Oh. It doesn't work. Do you know how to do that? My people? All right, great. All right, sure, yeah. Hello. Hey, what's up? We're out here pressuring Vanguard to change course. Can you help us out?
Sure, I hope so.
You guys want to play some games?
Yeah.
Would you like to try to save humanity from drowning in oil? You can pick a boat and see if you can pick the one that's not a stranded asset. Toss Earth into the gasoline. See if you can toss these coins into this tiny little green fund and avoid the oil, gas, and coal that Vanguard is investing your money in. Or do you want to spin the wheel and see if you can get Vanguard to change course away from climate destruction?
No gas. I don't want no gas, oil, coal. None of that.
Coal. You got one in gas? Well, we don't really want our money in gas, huh? Maybe they will change their climate policy. We think Vanguard is taking the planet and throwing it right into the gasoline. Maybe they will change their business practices, offer more green funds. Oh, the iceberg melting waters. Let's try again. We don't know what's down there. There's some deep waters, and they're gonna keep rising. By the time you retire, this planet will be very different. It's pretty tough because Vanguard has very few green funds and heavy investments in gas, oil, and coal. Okay, we can stop. You are? We think they, yeah. So we did that action to talk to people about what was happening. Oh, thanks. Yeah. It's fun, right? I didn't make this video. didn't make this video. So yeah, this action was to get people as they pass down the street. This was neutral to passive or passive to active support. So this is another action that I did. This is sort of a different kind of action. I think this action sort of ended up being more, and I don't have any pictures, apologies, about, it more felt like energizing the base. So the Vanguard campaign has been a long campaign, still haven't got what they wanted. So we held a fake press conference, and I wrote a script where we were the angel and the devil on the CEO at the time, Mort's shoulders. And trying to talk about why we're not voting for better climate policy. And we arrived, we set up a bunch of chairs on the lawn of Vanguard, and then we did this little performance. And at the end, someone said to me, like, we're leaving? There's not more that we're gonna do? So it was like people had so much fun at this event that they wanted to keep doing more. They were like, let's get arrested, let's pound on the doors. You know, it was this really energizing thing. I think at the time I felt like, oh, you know, we went on, I think it was a Saturday, it was a big action, there were a lot of people there, but it was like, oh, it's a Saturday, you know, there's no one working, whatever. But it really energized people and excited people, and a lot of people were involved who had never been involved before, and they wanted to come back. And so I think that's also something that's worthwhile. And this was another action that we did with Physicians for Social Responsibility Pennsylvania, to this idea, again, of educating people and turning them from passive support into active support. So we basically used this show to launch to educate people about these two campaigns that we're working on, trying to transition PGW, our municipally owned gas company, away from fossil fuels, and also to get people to show up for hearings. And there was something else we talked about in that. And we also, during this action, we called a council member on the phone and we organized it in advance and he picked up, which was really fun. So basically the idea was a bunch of clowns get together. I contacted a bunch of drag queens I knew and clowns, and the show was sort of posing as like, we're gonna raise money and solve climate change. And then halfway through the show, the artists themselves realize that the situation is actually quite dire and they can't raise enough money. And they sort of go doom scrolling and have this like panic. And then they're like, wait, maybe there's this activist from the street who was screaming about things. Maybe they'll tell us what to do. And I sort of educated people. And then we launched this thing that PSRPA has in Philadelphia called Rapid Actions, where we send out emails to let people know, this week we're doing call-ins, call your council member, here's the script. The idea was to make it very easy for people to participate, and using this show was to introduce people to that idea, to go from not knowing about it to getting excited about it and participating. And here are some pictures from the show. And we also partnered, we did raise money at the show, and we partnered with this local organization, Hunting Park Neighborhood Advisory Committee, good friends of ours, and we gave them all the money. And during the show, one of the drag queens, they're great at raising money, they started handing the bucket out again during the last song, because we were like, oh, we'll give the ticket money away. But they raised like $200 more. So we're like, here's that money. And that's one of the drag queens dressed as a penguin who was angry at the audience for not doing enough, and the whole show for being ridiculous. So, and this is, I'm going to share this one last one. So this was an action that we did as part of the PICO campaign. PSRPA was involved in a rate case against PICO, or not rate case, they were in their 4 years to get their default service program approved. Their default service program has, you'll find out how much solar in it, and we were trying to push them to have more solar. So we created this video, and so there was both the in-person event, like with the carnival action, there's the in-person education, but then there's also this video after the fact that we could release and PICO could see and be embarrassed. So yeah, you can go ahead and play that.
We'll be telling the whole story.
No. All right. We must suffer in the world of advertising. Just use this moment to take a nice deep breath. Here we are toward the end.
You must have paid to get that in there.
You know PICO, right? Yeah, I pay them every month. You know, PICO provides electric energy. 1% of energy, if you are on PICO's default plan, that's what most people are on if you don't shop, comes from solar. So the rest would be like gas, coal, nuclear. Well, what percentage of your energy is coming from solar? 75. Well, I know solar is hot at the moment now.
50.
20. Okay, 20 is lower than that.
Oh,
By a
low?
lot.
A lot?
It's less than 20.
I would guess something like 10 to 15%.
Very low. It's even lower. Lower.
5%.
5%.
It's 0.5 of 1%.
How much?
Half of 1%. And do you think that it should be more?
I think so.
That's bad. So the default service until 2029, if their current plan is approved, would be 0.5% solar.
Okay, so I believe that's all I have. Is that the end of it? Yeah. So that hopefully that incites people's creativity and also gives some sort of frameworks for different ways to think about planning. Thanks. I almost took this.
Thank you so much, Linnea. Can I ask you a follow-up
Sure.
question? Okay, so for those of us like myself who are watching all of this and going, this looks amazing.
It's fun, right?
Yeah, I want to try some of this stuff, but maybe they're not, like a trained clown and performer. Like, what advice would you give us for employing some more like performance tactics in our actions as we're thinking about campaign planning?
I think people have the ideas. Everybody's creative, and I all the time I'm like, oh, what if I did this? Like, people have ideas. I think it's just like, go with it, try it, see what happens. And especially if you're linked up with a campaign and with a community, then you can do no wrong, because at least you're bouncing the ideas off of other people. So if they're awful, then other people.
You've got a built-in group of yes men or no men.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for that presentation. And now we have our final presenter for this panel. We have Carole Loeffler. So please warm the stage for Carole.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, should we take a deep breath? That was good. Maybe I'll talk a little slower than I was anticipating. So I am primarily an educator and artist, so I work with undergraduate students and I teach them about craftivism, which is a totally made-up word for something that has existed for thousands of years. So let's talk about it. So craftivism is a term, it's craft plus activism, and the tagline is, it's activism for introverts. And I teach lots of classes full of introverts, and we were talking just before the panel. What I love about teaching craftivism is it's planting little seeds of the things that we can all do in our daily lives when the big things seem impossible or things are overwhelming. So I'm going to talk today about craftivism. Here's sort of one of she likes to call herself the godmother of craftivism. She created this term, Betsy Greer. It's a way of looking at life where voicing opinions through creativity makes your voice stronger and your compassion deeper and your quest for justice more infinite. This is also, I will not read this whole thing, but there are certain things that sort of pop out about craftivism and this manifesto. Some of the key tenets of craftivism is that it's about connection. It's about slowing down, and it's about connecting with others across the table, and sort of what Linnea was saying with getting people to sort of move from being passive to active in slow, deliberate, and sometimes labored ways. There's a book out, some of you may have seen this book before, it's fantastic. Shannon Downey just did a book tour, she came to Philadelphia. But these are the different ways that craftivism can act and can function. My students in particular really lean into healing for what they want to create, and that's fine by me. It's all acceptable, it's all good and worthwhile. I get them to sort of disconnect from digital things and learn how to embroider and how to maybe connect with people, or maybe make an embroidery piece and give to someone that you have, someone you want to say something to, and it's a way to connect with them. So there's lots of different ways you can do this here with craftivism. Craftivism is typically related around fiber, but not always. And this is also sort of another approach. This is someone in the UK, Sarah Corbett, and I love the idea of being a tortoise. I feel like I'm never a tortoise. I'm always like, I don't know, what's really fat, cheetah? I don't know. I feel like we could all be a tortoise a little bit more. One of the things that's interesting too is that this pair of scissors, I also run workshops with all different kinds of age groups. And the idea is that when we're in groups, that we purposely don't have enough materials, so that you are forced to talk to someone else and say, hey, can I borrow those scissors? Hey, do you have this? So that it's sort of low stakes way to connect with someone that's sitting at the table. The other thing that's great about craftivism is sometimes it is hard to look people in the eye and have a conversation, but if you're concentrating on something in your lap or in your hands, it's easier to facilitate conversation sometimes. So I'm going to show you all the sort of different ways that craftivism can help introverts maybe work their way out into the world. So this is my lovely graphic. I have a master's degree in art, you guys. Okay, so these are sort of what I consider the 7 groups of craftivism, sort of broadly defined. And I like to think of it as like the interior and the rings sort of leading to the exterior. So we're gonna talk about embroidery, visible mending, which is having its time right now, which is really exciting, activist baking. So you'll notice sort of all of these things are really traditionally known as women's work. So like the idea that craftivism, it's not a new thing, right? Women have been doing this for centuries. We just didn't call it things right, or we didn't have that name for it, or it wasn't sort of brought to light. It was just something that was done behind closed doors. But there's a power in that quiet labor, and that's what is really interesting that's sort of coming to light now. So also looking at protest banners, kindness drops, yarn bombing, and collective. And if that seems like nonsense to you, I'm gonna explain it all right now. So we're gonna start with embroidery. Oh, I had really cool fonts. Sorry, guys. It's okay. Imagine the font is a Sharpie. That's what it is. That's written with a Sharpie. So some of you may know the Tiny Pricks project. It originated, this was the first Tiny Prick, which is embroidery on found materials. And Diana Weimar, she started by embroidering Donald Trump tweets. So if we all remember this one, she has branched out to do lots of other kinds of embroidery projects, the one from the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago. And so these function in lots of different ways. They're disseminated through social media. There are exhibitions of these. Other folks can join, like I've stitched some things and joined. So the one thing about craftivism that's really great, well, one of the things, is that anyone can participate. There are so many group projects that people can just be a part of. And there's not gatekeeping like there is in sort of big art museums. Shanna Lee Hampton is in Seattle, and she also is known for sort of drawing sort of clips and parts and excerpts from things that are in the zeitgeist and putting them up on the streets in Seattle. And letting what happens, right? Does it stay there forever? Does it get torn down? Does someone burn it? I don't know. But again, the idea of healing. Visible mending and wearable craftivism, preaching to the choir here, you guys are all about sustainability, right? So the idea that maybe something becomes better or more worthwhile if you save it and mend it, right? Like the ideas that have been around for, decades. So instead of buying that new thing from Old Navy, what if you took that sweater or you went to a thrift store and you mended it? And that labor and that time that you put into that garment means something. And it's a way to talk about sustainability in a quiet way, right? Especially if you are an introvert and you don't feel comfortable sort of going out and making bigger actions. And then also recently, I'm sure some of you have seen the red hats, sort of borrowing the red hats from Norway and the occupation. And this was last week, so there's probably more than $250,000 raised. And these are $5 for the pattern. So you could just buy the pattern even if you're not gonna make it. But what's really cool is that there are all these communities coming together to have stitch-ins or to have knit-ins to make these hats. And the idea that there's solidarity in this, especially for me when when I'm walking around, there's high school students or college students, and I'm wearing a red hat, there's that solidarity that's really important for them to see, that they know that I'm an ally in this with them. So activist baking, so if those of you, you don't want to pick up a needle and thread, maybe you're good at measuring things scientifically in baking. I am not. But there are lots of ways that you can go about this, right? You could do fundraisers, but this particular person, the sweet feminist she's known as, uses social media to get her ideas across, and oftentimes she'll sell sort of swag with the images of what she's created and then donate that funding to like Planned Parenthood or something. So the idea too is that craftivism leans into something you're interested and curious about, or something you already have a strength in and that you like. This is a video, if we can play. It doesn't matter if we hear the sound or not, but because there's lots of good text. Hopefully, we'll see if there's an ad. We'll take another deep breath if there's an ad. Oh. talk over it for a minute, but the idea is this activist, baker, creates cookies that they feel like people should know about this work, right? And even maybe in your neighborhoods, there's a bakery in my neighborhood that was making ice out cookies that they were then selling and donating the funds for. But I think also this is another way that's sort of quiet, that is something you can do on your own that feels like you're doing something when it's all so overwhelming. Do you want to see it to the end? I don't know how long it is. No, it's okay. We can stop that. But she does all different kinds of actors that she feels like we should know about, which is really interesting. So protest banners, there's a long history of protest banners borrowing from the suffragettes. And so if we're thinking about that, the radiating circles that I showed in the beginning, now we're sort of like getting out, right? We're doing things, we're small, we're doing things, we're wearing things, and then we're sort of going out more into the world and bringing banners out into the streets. And I don't know if you've heard of the protest banner lending library, but what a great idea, right? So that if you don't have the time or the creativity, but you want to go out and bring a banner, you can literally go, it's really tiny, but on the right, you can see all the permanent lending libraries, and you can go to them and check out like a book, you can check out a banner. And there are workshops where people can come learn how to make them. Yeah, pretty cool project. This is another one, and I'm sure we may have all heard of sort of the little rocks, kindness rocks and stuff like that you leave places. This author in particular started doing these. They're from New Zealand, and they would create projects that they've just made just because. Again, thinking about healing and connection, and just leaving them in places for folks to brighten their day. And since then, since this book was published, probably, 2008, 2009, there are tons of, I don't know who's on Facebook anymore, but I am. There's tons of Facebook groups about art abandonment. Is that it? Is my time up already? Okay, quick. Okay, there's another one. This is art abandonment. I'm almost done. This is like my jam, you guys. It's so hard to talk. Okay, have you seen this one before? This was a protest to the Iraq War, yarn bombing, taking soft things and putting them on industrial things, making statements with them in small and large ways that are temporary. This is using the chain link to create sort of cross stitch in a large scale. Okay, this is the last of them. These are things you can join if you have the talents and interest. These are literally blankets that are given to immigrants new to the country, and they've given out thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them. This is an intergenerational quilting society where you can make quilt squares and ship them to the Social Justice Sewing Academy, and they have groups of folks that sew them together and put them in exhibitions. And then this is the last thing that you can do. If you want to do, there is an International Analog Day that you can join. And if you find on social media Shannon Downey, or at the bottom, Badass Cross Stitch, you can also participate. And then this is just a piece of my own work to say, but also make sure that you take care of yourself too. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Carole. Those are such fabulous examples. And I have to say that in Minneapolis, we are all out of red yarn.
Yep.
You cannot find red yarn.
You can't find it in Philly.
My mom had like a knitting project like left over from Christmas that needed red yarn, could not find red yarn. So it's pretty amazing how some of these have taken on, and it's great to have those links so that people can check those out and join a project as well. So now the rest of the time is ours, which is really juicy. I want to give us just a minute, because I think we have like 8 minutes. So I wonder if we could just take a moment and turn to the folks at our table and maybe just share for a minute about like what examples, what stories resonated with you from these 3 artist talks. We'll take 1 minute.
So I got to tell both of you guys, you inspire me.
Oh, thanks.
I just love art, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes a
It's really
huge
cool to
difference.
see. Yeah.
I mean, and you, even the banners. I mean, yeah, they can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Equate did a banner drop during the PICO campaign, and they got like a tour, like their tours of the PICO building. They went to the roof, and they dropped the banner from the roof that said "Climate is changing ways at PICO" on the hottest day of the year. I think it was too.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if they do this anymore, but they.
This is a mess.
My favorite art thing of all time is we did a blockade at a well site, but we had an 8-foot by 7-foot by 6-foot paper mache pig.
Oh my God,
that we
that's
used
huge.
to block. Yeah, well, we used it to block the thing. But when the cops showed up, they got out of the car, they just started laughing. I mean, it was like immediate.
Great, and it's not long enough, but we're going to wrap up so we can get some big group questions. If you had something you wanted to say, maybe it fits with the whole group. Consider that. I have Larissa over here who has the mic. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and Larissa will come over. Also, I will still accept note cards if you are more introvertly inclined. I will take note cards. And I'm actually going to start with a note card question. From Zoom, this is a question for Linnea. Linnea, how are your actions funded?
Of the ones that I talked about, I think the Yes Men, I don't know how they had their funding. It might have been a grant. The PSRPA gave a little bit of funding for the show we did, but also I think that we had no rehearsal. Like, it was not like, oh, we like put this together really carefully. I was like, okay, this is the idea. They could sing these songs, and then we like went up. It was like heavily improvised and went super well. I'm trying to think of what else I talked about. A lot of it, I think, is, like the Pico one in the penguin suit, I guess I did on like work time. So it just like, it depends on the action, but there is, I think artists especially are used to giving our time. So I think a lot of it, if there's not funding, is like, well, I like doing creative stuff. I'm going to do this. Yeah.
Michael, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm going to do a public service announcement. There's a group here, back over in the corner there, Mountain Watershed Association. They have something called the Direct Support Fund that actually funds these kind of things. So if you're thinking about doing something, talk to M back in the corner. She's waving at us.
Awesome plug. Go talk to M. Also, I will just say that I've also worked a lot in this big, hairy question about how to get stuff funded, and I'd love to connect with you either here at this conference or outside this conference. If you want someone to just kind of spitball with, I love strategizing with people on how to make this kind of work more possible in our movement.
The fundraiser was in part born out of that idea, because I was like, there's no money. How do I get money to get, because I wanted to spend time rehearsing things with artists to think about, how can we make something really great? And then I was like, oh, I don't have any money to pay artists to spend time. So it was like, well, you should do a fundraiser, but the fundraiser itself is a joke. And that's how it was kind of born.
It's pretty genius,
Thanks.
I have to say. Fantastic. Do we have a question from the live audience?
Yes. Hello, wonderful people. So I have a question that you can do succinctly, very easy. You don't have to go to it, but I want to know for each one of you, what your favorite action was that you did and why.
Favorite action you were a part of and why?
My favorite action, and we were just talking about it, as a matter of fact, is this was several years ago. A friend of mine, Maggie Henry, owned an organic pig farm in Lawrence County, and it was impacting her livelihood. It was killing pigs. But we did a blockade at a well site with a giant 6-foot by 7-foot by 8-foot paper mache pig. It's a beautiful thing. And talking about the creativity, when the cops arrived to haul us off to jail, which they didn't do, they got out of their cars and they laughed. And this happened repeatedly. There were 30 cop cars that showed up. And every single time they got out and they laughed, and that was the end of it.
So I don't really do that many actions outside of, I feel like my function is to help other people find their voice to then do their actions. I do have an ongoing street art project called Granny Graffiti, which was the last image, where I put up basically doilies that if your grandma was to do graffiti, she would totally put up a doily in the streets. And what would she say to you? So there are these sort of strong sort of affirmative phrases, but I put them up on the streets of Philadelphia, so that's usually what I do as an action.
That's an action.
Yeah.
I like them all. They're all fun. Yeah, I had good times.
No favorite children from Linnea. Great. Okay. Do we have time for one more question?
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Anyone want to be our last question? Okay, great.
I'll be quick about this, but what have you guys found is the most effective way that you've gotten through to these large corporations that you're working to fight against? Like in each of your cases, I know you do different kinds of activism, but what have you found to be the most effective in that area?
Honestly, this is the area that I feel the most imposter syndrome, because I feel like I haven't figured it out. I haven't cracked the code. But I have noticed that, like I was talking about, different things do different things. Like, I've noticed that, corporations sometimes respond to news media. So sometimes it's like, what's going to get news media? And sometimes it encourages people and gathers people because something was accessible and they felt like they could show up again. And really what you need in that moment is to build the movement and build the people that you can call. So that has its own meaning. But I think a lot of times at the time, I don't necessarily see the impact. I've made a bunch of videos that can be useful later. And so it's like, oh, I felt like no one saw that at the time when I made it, but then sometimes later on I can use it and then people love it or whatever.
George Lakey talks about when you do a campaign is picking a target that you can who can make a difference. And so I used to go after corporations. I don't think we can reach them anymore. Politicians, those suckers are dependent on us, and we have people power, so let's go after the damn politicians. They're easily embarrassed. Let's keep going after them.
There's a story, the Craftivist Collective was born in the UK by Sarah Corbett, and she has a TED Talk, so you might be interested in seeing it, where she talks about how there's a politician she kept trying to get in touch with, and she would email them and call them and could not get in touch with them. She embroidered her a message and sent it directly to her office, and she got a meeting with her. So sometimes it's the small, quiet things that sometimes get the reaction too. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up. I want to remind you about the circles on your table, the circles of gratitude. Fill out a circle, pass it off to someone you meet here at the conference today or someone in your life. And I'll talk with these artists about how we get their great presentations with examples up online somewhere so that you can go and refer back to those. But let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you all.